Hi everybody! Today on Bella Renovare, we are going to be making over this little wooden chest right here. We're going to be adding some stamps, we're going to be adding a transfer, we're going to be blending, we're going to make it super awesome, so stay tuned. Hi everybody, my name's Crys'Dawna and I'm a furniture artist, and this is my channel, and welcome to Bella Renovare by Crys'Dawna. So I told you that today we are going to be working on this chest back here. We're going to blend some cool teals and yellows on the body of it, and we're going to do some IOD stamps. I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we are also going to use an IOD transfer, and I'm going to show you how to use that. It's a little bit different than some of the other transfers that I've used as far as the application process, so make sure you pay attention to that, as well as we're going to do some blending. So as always, I'm going to walk you through it very slowly, and it's going to be awesome. So stay tuned, and we're going to pretty up this little chest.
Making moves, trying to get away from this life I'm living. Same old things every day, wanna change this feeling. Wasting no more time, don't care about what you're saying. Try to keep me down, no time for all your playing. Yeah, even if you doubt me now, you should know I don't care about the things you say. Yeah. I don't even know what I want no more, no more, no more, yeah. I'ma figure out what to do with all my time, my new life, yeah. I don't even know what to do right now, right now, right now, yeah. I'ma figure out what to do with all my time, my new life, yeah. I don't wanna try again, try again, try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again. All we had were those memories, time to make some new ones. Sun is up, I'm wide awake, we're not getting younger. If you still love me, then please just let me go. I won't stay with you, I need to live my own life. Yeah, even if you doubt me now, you should know I don't care about the things you say. Yeah, I don't even know what I want no more, no more, no more, yeah. I'ma figure out what to do with all my time, my new life, yeah. I don't even know what to do right now, right now, right now, yeah. I'ma figure out what to do with all my time, my new life, yeah. I don't wanna try again, try again, try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again, try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again. Don't wanna do this again. You must have felt this coming. Can we just leave it right here? Never to touch it again. Yeah, even if you doubt me now, you should know I don't care about the things you say. I don't even know what I want no more, no more, no more, yeah. I'ma figure out what to do with all my time, my new life, yeah. I don't even know what to do right now, right now, right now, yeah. I'ma figure out what to do with all my time, my new life, yeah. I don't wanna try again, try again, try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again, try again, try again. I don't wanna try again, try again.
Okay everybody, so I have put actually 2 coats of each color down. The reason why I did 2 coats and I normally only do 1 and start with my blending is because this wood is so dark that the lighter colors actually needed 2 coats, and I wanted to make sure that it had full coverage before I went on to blending, because I don't want it to go down to the wood. So that is the reason why I do a base coat before I blend, is 1, so I can see where my blend is going to be, and 2, so that I know I have full coverage and it's not going to work its way down to this wood right here. Okay, so for the colors we have, and we're going to get a little bit close, I'm going to work this whole thing with you. So the colors is Mermaid Tail, the Golf, Rebel Yellow, and Daisy. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we're going to work this entire back piece. Usually I focus on a small area at a time, but we're going to do this big piece together. Okay, so we're going to start with Mermaid Tail, and we're going to start with the Golf, right? You need a clean, dry, neutral brush to help with the final feathering. If you don't have a bunch of brushes, you can clean the brushes in between and just work with what you have. Okay, so again, we're going to do Mermaid Tail into Golf right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mist this and just lightly go over it with another light skim coat of Mermaid Tail, just to make sure that I have full coverage. This is really not a full coat, it's just a skim coat, just so I catch any areas that maybe don't have full coverage. I think it does though. This is just my insurance policy when I'm blending, is to just go over those colors. Okay, and I'm going to do that also with the Golf. And I'm spraying water on this because I just want this to be kind of a skim coat. And so this water helps it move a little bit fast, or a little bit more. You can do this in your regular painting too. You can mist the area. You can use a damp brush. Whatever helps. Okay, so now we're going to work on this. Mermaid Tail into the Golf. Now, you can choose to do the Golf first and go up into Mermaid Tail, or you can do Mermaid Tail and choose to go down into Golf. It doesn't matter which way you do it. I tend to work from top to bottom. Whatever works for you, you do it. Okay, so now I'm going to mist this transition line right here. That is the key in blending, is making sure that you have enough moisture, but not too much moisture. So I'm going to start with just going up from here, and I'm going to do some circles, okay? And I'm going to do a circle all the way across. And since this is a big piece, you can put a little bit more Mermaid Tail on there and work your way all the way across, okay? Now, I am going to go horizontal with my Mermaid Tail brush. So I'm trying to do long, even strokes. Just keep that misted. Long, even strokes here. What we're doing is we're softening up that line. Now I'm going to go over it and I'm going to do vertical. When you do different directions, it helps blend your paint and move your paint in different ways. Now I'm going to do diagonal. Okay, now I'm going to take my Golf and I'm going to do the same thing with my Golf up into my Mermaid Tail. So I'm going to start down here and kind of move my way up. We started with circles the very first, but I'm going to push some Golf up into that Mermaid Tail. And I'm just going to go like this, and then I'm going to do some circles. You don't always need to do circles. Some colors are really, they blend really well, and so you don't need to do the circles. But, okay, so now we're going to do the long strokes, going up into our Mermaid Tail. Do some vertical, long strokes, do some vertical, long strokes, do some vertical. Okay, now I have some of my Golf coming up to my Mermaid Tail and I don't really want that, so I'm going to take some Mermaid Tail and I'm just going to mist this, and I'm just going to lightly start up here and kind of work my way down, just to put a little bit more Mermaid Tail in there. Okay, now this is where our neutral brush is going to come in. So I am going to mist the Mermaid Tail and the Golf. I'm going to take my dry neutral brush and I'm going to start like this. Long strokes across. Sorry for that loud noise. Just kind of move your brush. We are only feathering. We're not doing crazy amount of pressure. Now with this, I'm going to do vertical, very light. Think of a feather. I'm barely putting any pressure down, okay? I'm gonna mist it again, and I'm gonna go diagonal, and then I'm gonna go mist it again and do horizontal one more time. Very lightly. Now I'm gonna show you something, okay? So a lot of times we don't know what it's gonna look like because it's wet, right? When it's wet, you're not sure, sometimes it looks more blotchy. At this point, I would tell you to walk away, but I'm going to dry this with a hair dryer to show you what it starts looking like once it's dry, okay? So it's gonna be a little bit loud. I might put some music on and you can just watch it dry. So my point of doing this is to show you. Do you see right here? It looks more even and it looks nice and blended. But then over here, it's looking a little blotchy and you're kind of like, I don't know if that's right. That's because this is wet. This right here is dry. I just dried it with the hair dryer. There's a few spots that might be wet. But for the most part, this is dry. You can see this right here is dry, but that's wet, so it looks blotchy. So that is why you need to walk away and allow it to dry before you can really tell how well you've blended your piece, okay? So just remember that when you're blending is blend it and walk away. I don't generally use the hair dryer to speed it up. If it makes you feel better, you can. Just make sure you step back a little bit. And I do try to use the cool air versus the warm air. But after, you know, an hour or so, come back and look at it and see if it looks like what you want. But like I said, this is dry and it doesn't look blotchy, but over here it is wet, so it looks all weird and blotchy. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to the golf and the Rebel Yellow part for next. Okay, so we had already done our coat of the golf, so I don't need to put an extra coat of the golf, but right now I'm gonna use this opportunity to do another coat of Rebel Yellow. So we're gonna mist that, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put another layer of paint, just a skim coat, make sure that it's got full coverage. If you know that yours is totally full, then you don't have to do this, but these light colors over this dark, I just wanna make sure. Okay, so same thing, you can start with whatever color you want. I have I have Rebel Yellow in my hand, so I'm just gonna start with that to show you that you can go from here to here. So I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my brush. I always just dip it in and wipe it off. I'm going to mist this area, and I'm gonna start down here, move it up into the golf just a little bit, ever so slightly. Okay. Add a little bit more of that Rebel Yellow. Make sure you mist that area right there. Okay, now I'm gonna do my circles. I'm gonna move this way. Whatever way is easiest for you. If it's easier to go this way and move your way back, so you can start from here and do circles, or you can move back and go backwards. And I'm not so much doing circles as sometimes I'm doing like a scooting motion. Okay, so now we're gonna do our golf, and I'm gonna just go ahead and put a little bit of a skim coat starting up here, down into that Rebel Yellow. Okay. And we're keep it moisture onto here. Now, when you blend the two colors like this together, don't expect to get completely clean yellow. It's going to mix a little bit and turn into almost like a little bit of a teal color. So now I'm going to take my golf, do some circles. Again, you can go like this, go down like that. Okay, so at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my golf brush. I'm going to mist this. I'm going to start up here and kind of do the horizontal. Keep it misted. Just lightly work it. Okay, horizontal. I swear every YouTube video I do now has my cuckoo clock in it. Horizontal. And we're softening up that transition, okay? That's what we're doing. We're going to do vertical. Oops. Do some vertical. Go back with long horizontal strokes. Okay, now I'm going to take my Rebel Yellow and I'm going to start down here and work my way up, okay? Work my way up into that. Down here, work my way up. Down, work my way up. Okay, now I'm going to do some vertical. You can do some diagonal at this point. Diagonal helps really soften it up as well. Vertical. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more of the golf right here just because some of that yellow had gone up there. So I'm just going to dip this in the golf. I'm going to mist it. I'm going to kind of start here and just add some golf right there. Okay, and then I'm going to do my neutral brush so that my neutral brush can kind of just pull some of that golf down in there. So here's my neutral brush. It's a clean, dry brush. I'm going to mist my golf. I'm going to mist my Rebel Yellow, make sure that I have enough. I'm going to start over here and just kind of work my way down, okay? Keep it misted, work my way down. And as you can see, this golf is starting to kind of go over the Rebel Yellow, and that's okay. But if you don't want it, I'm going to show you what you can do. So I have a paper towel. This is my neutral brush. I'm going to clean off some of that, and you see how it's kind of green from those colors mixing. So I'm going to clean this off. I'm going to spray my neutral brush, clean a little bit more of it off. And what I'm going to do is kind of the same concept that I did when I had too much yellow up there. I'm going to take my Rebel Yellow, I'm going to squirt it down here. Take it and just kind of run some more Rebel Yellow right here. Just very lightly. Okay. Okay. I'm going to mist it. Here's my neutral brush that I just cleaned up. And kind of work my way up. And that has taken some of that greenish blue off of there. And so now at this point, we're going to do what I said, and you're going to just let it be and dry and see where we're at. So the last part of this is to blend the daisy into the Rebel Yellow. So what I'm going to do is I am going to open up my daisy, and I'm going to use this opportunity again to put another coat of daisy on here. Again, this is a lighter color over a darker wood, and so sometimes you need 2 coats, sometimes you need 3 coats. It really just depends. So I'm going to go ahead and put this all on here. And with it being down at the bottom, if I don't get full coverage, if I didn't do this, I could go back later and go over it because I shouldn't have any blending going down right here, at least on this lip. And so now I'm going to go ahead and lightly put my daisy on here. Okay, now I want my Rebel Yellow, and so I have a brush for my Rebel Yellow, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mist that area because that Rebel Yellow is dry. And so I'm going to actually, because it's a smaller area, I'm going to take my Rebel Yellow and I'm gonna put it on my brush going this way versus this way. And I'm just gonna rub it across, so I'm almost kind of blending it while I'm applying it. And I'm just gonna lightly rub that across. And these colors are so close to each other that a lot of times when you get colors that are really close to each other, they actually end up blending while you're even just applying it in this, like this. And at this point, when you're blending these colors, if there's too much green down here, you can mist it, add a little bit of your Rebel Yellow and kind of go up a little bit, just so that you have more of a yellow transition. So like right here, I'm gonna go up just a little bit more. Okay, so we're gonna finish putting our Rebel Yellow all the way down here. Go up a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my daisy brush and I'm going to go like this. First of all, we're gonna mist this. I'm gonna hold it like this and I'm going to just go horizontal to try to get those colors to blend. And if you can see it on the screen, they're starting to blend. If you need more water, add more water. Okay, and you can also use your brush going this way as well. I sometimes lightly just do it. I know you can hear the brush, so listen to the brush. It's ever so slightly. If you can't hear it, then that's telling you that it's really light. And so I'll go using my brush this way just to help with those areas. We do circles, verticals, all that stuff, but that's also another thing that you can do. I'm gonna take my Rebel Yellow and I'm going to squirt it one more time. I'm gonna take it this way and I'm gonna overlap it over my daisy and where my Rebel Yellow are now at this point, where that transition point is. Okay, so I'm happy with the blend right there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my dry, clean, neutral brush. I'm gonna squirt this. I'm gonna start from the bottom. And the reason why I'm gonna start from the bottom and work my way up is because I'd rather pull some yellow up into the green, blue. I don't wanna pull the blue-green down into my yellow. So I'm going to start down here and just kind of lightly flick it up. Okay. And you can dab this off in between if you want to get that excess water and just kind of flick it up. You can go diagonal at this point if you want. I'm gonna move this. There we go. I'm gonna clean this in between. Mist it, start down at the bottom and work my way up here. And if you can see these lines right here are starting to soften. And there you go. And that is how you blend these colors together. I'm going to be applying some Iron Orchid Decor transfers over top of the front of this. And generally with other brands, you would put it right over the paint. But with IOD, you want to make sure that your paint is completely cured and there's no moisture in your paint before you apply a decor transfer. So the best way to do this is to wait 24 hours after you've painted, and then I'm going to put a satin top coat over my paint. Because it takes 30 days for it to cure, I'm going to do the satin top coat. That way we don't have to worry about any kind of residual moisture affecting the adhesion of the IOD transfer. And then we are going to wait for the top coat to dry. I'll be using Dixie Belle's Satin Clear Coat over the paint. And then once this dries and starts curing, probably I'll wait about 12 to 24 hours. Then we're going to apply my IOD Decor Transfers. I'll be using 2 different ones. So I will be using probably this one to piece together. And then I will also be using Wander as well on the front. But first we're going to seal this piece with my Dixie Belle's Clear Coat in Satin. I will be using a sponge brush. It's the easiest way for me. I'm gonna make sure that I stir this really well, and then I'm going to apply it on the front, and then we will wait for it to dry. Okay, so it has been 24 hours since we put the satin clear coat on this piece. And so now I'm going to start with the Wander Decor Transfer from IOD. So it comes, this one comes in a big case, a big tube, because it's really big. Okay, so be very careful because these are gentle. And I'm gonna open it, and I'm kind of gonna assess what I want to do on here. So obviously, hold on. Obviously, this is wider than the chest. So I'm probably going to cut this part off, and then I may remove a few of the bigger flowers, and that way I can kind of assess where it needs to be, and then I can place these, like I can piece these flowers that are too long, I can piece them into there once I figure it out. Okay, so I have taped this on here, and as you can see, it is not wide enough, but then they're tall enough. And I really want to keep this cluster right here in this corner, and I want to kind of do this cluster over in this corner. So I'm going to carefully cut, I think, maybe right here at these daisies. Actually, I'll probably cut right here at these roses, I think. No, I'm gonna cut at the daisies, I think, because if I cut at the roses, then that daisy wouldn't be full. So I'm gonna cut here at these little daisies, and I'm going to cut all the way up, and I'm gonna move this over. And then for these ones that are too tall, I'm gonna go down. So I'm gonna cut this right here, and I'm going to replace it maybe on top of here. I'm probably gonna cut this. That one, I'm going to cut this one. I may cut this off, and I'm going to replace them right here. I also have Redo 4. I think that's how you say it in French, Redo 4. And so I'm going to take these flowers, and I'm going to place them in this as well. This chest is actually abnormally long. So if it was like a regular chest or a dresser or something like that, it'd probably be perfect. But you could also, have, if it's a really long piece like a buffet, you can get 2 of them and place them next to each other. So I'm going to kind of piece this together and see what we come up with. Okay, so for this one, I think I'm going to just trim off the top and allow it to just be cut off. I kind of like the way it looks. So now that I've figured that out, what I'm going to do is you're going to be very careful. You're only place this where you want to place it. And you're going to pull off this protective backing. This protective backing is almost kind of like a vinyl. So be very careful Do not let get dust and things like that on here. And what I'm gonna do, now that you've done this, be very careful. Set it here. And I'm gonna start from the bottom. I'm just gonna push with my fingers over here. And I'll probably have to trim that again. And I'm gonna go over this way. Just with my finger. And I'm gonna go down to set it in place. And I'm gonna keep my tape there for now. Push that on there. Okay, and that was a little bit, I didn't cut off quite enough off that one, so I can cut off more on that one. I'm gonna do the same thing over here on this side, and then we'll be ready to burnish it, and then we're gonna fill in this part right here. All right, so it comes with this plastic burnishing stick, and what I'm gonna do is I am going to start at the top, and I'm going to just push that onto there. Because this went a little bit over, what I'm gonna do is actually trim that, because it's irritating me. So I'm gonna trim that. That's two. I'm doing that so I don't have to hold this down. Okay, so I'm going to take this top part and I'm going to burnish it with this plastic burnishing stick. Okay, I'm just going to go over the entire thing really quick before I really start focusing on it. So I'm going to push it down like this. Get it on there. Okay, so now I'm going to burnish this. I'm going to pull this little tape off. And you're going to want to chase the air bubble, okay? So when you see an air bubble on there, all right, it's going to, as soon as you get that air bubble right there, let's show you. You're gonna wanna kind of chase the air bubble. Okay, you're going to want to chase the air bubble. So as soon as you get an air bubble, let's see if we can pop one up over here. There's a couple air bubbles that are poking up right here. That is what's gonna be your best friend to release this transfer, okay? So once you get this air bubble, you can hold it and just be very gentle with these transfers, okay? And you're just going to burnish it along. You've got an air bubble down here. Let's just burnish this along. Now remember, if it doesn't pull up, you can push it back down and burnish it some more. I go very slow with this process because I want to do the right thing. I want to make sure that it is proper and it's adhered very nicely. You can see these air bubbles are coming. And when you see that, that means that it's adhered to your surface. The darker ones means it's not adhered to your surface yet. So we're just pushing up. You can take it at the corner and kind of go like this for some of those smaller, hard to reach areas. And I'm just burnishing it while I'm pulling very, 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 very gently, okay? Especially for these more gentle parts right here. Now, what I'm gonna do is, so that I don't have this in my way, I'm actually going to cut the excess while I work the entire thing. Okay, so I cut the excess plastic off. And I'm gonna do that on this entire piece. The other transfer is not quite as colorful as this one, so I picked out the most colorful ones that I could, and I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to just kind of place them, I think I'm going to do them kind of sideways a little bit, that way they go into there, and then I'm going to cut off the bottom. And I'm going to just put them in there. And then I also still have a couple from here that I can cut and place maybe like over top of it or something like that, or you know, maybe up here, or I can put it down here. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do at this point. I may place this one over here, this orange one right here, and just kind of layer it or cut the stem a little bit from. Okay, so the transfer is on, and now the next step is to, when the transfer is on here and you're burnishing it with your stick, you're doing a really good job of burnishing it. But you also need to burnish it a little bit extra to ensure that it is really nice and burnished snug to the surface. So I generally take a t-shirt or a lint-free rag or something soft, and I will go over the transfer one more time and put a medium pressure just to make sure that it is completely burnished. And the halo on the IOD transfers is not really noticeable, so I really like that. But you will just burnish this down, and once you burnish the entire thing with a soft rag, then if you decide that you want to distress it a little bit, maybe give it a distressed look, that's when you'll take a high grit sandpaper, maybe 120 to 220, and you will distress it. Sometimes if I feel like it needs to be burnished even more, I'll take a really high grit sandpaper, something that's not going to distress it and not really affect my surface, but it'll just burnish it even more. And then we're gonna go and we're going to seal this. Now, you can seal it with wax, you can seal it with most water-based polyacrylics. I don't recommend polyurethane. I have seen and had bad experiences with it. It will eat away. Also, gator hide is not recommended with transfers of any kind, and so I generally use Satin Clear Coat by Dixie Belle, and it works really great. So I'm going to burnish this whole entire thing, and then we're going to kind of assess it and see if I want to distress it a little bit. Okay, everybody, so I have burnished this with a rag, and now I have my super fine rag pad by Surf Prep. These are super awesome. You can cut them if you need to, if you need smaller pieces. It folds like this, and these last a really long time. So I'm gonna go over this again with super fine, just to see if I can distress it a little bit and just burnish it extra. I do want this piece distressed because it's going to go to a military family, and we do a lot of international moves and moves to different bases. And honestly, I always suggest, especially with military or people who have kids, to slightly distress your pieces. That way, if there's a nick in it, if it's a perfectly done piece, so solid, and then the kids get a nick in it or moving it gets a nick in it, it's not as devastating. So that's my one suggestion. So I'm gonna go over this, and I'm going to sand the entire front of this. And you can see it's starting to distress it just a little bit. I don't want a ton of distressing, and this will wipe off right here. So if you see the color coming off on the piece, I'm going to show you how we're going to wipe that off. This is already sealed. Remember, we sealed it with the Satin Clear Coat, so we'll be able to wipe that down. I'm going to wipe it down with like a damp rag to get all this excess off. Okay, so I'm going to take my rag and I'm going to wipe it off. And you can see that all that comes off. The color down here comes off. It doesn't need to be a damp rag, just a dry, lint-free rag. Because again, remember, it is already sealed, and so it's going to wipe off. Just make sure you're moving in different areas. You get clean area each time. Now, if you have some areas that, like the red went on the yellow right here, you can use a tiny bit of water on a rag. So we're just gonna do a tiny bit of this, try to avoid the transfer, and just wipe it off. If you get it on the transfer, it's okay. We're gonna do a water-based sealer over it anyways. We're just gonna make sure that it is completely dry before we do our final seal. But you see how easy it is? So don't worry if the color of the transfer gets on your lighter colors. You can just take a little bit of water on a rag and wipe it away. Let's turn this bad boy inside out. There we go. Okay. Easy peasy, no big deal. Didn't hurt anything. Got a little bit of distressing, got some extra burnishing in there. And we'll wait probably about 15 minutes to make sure that the surface is completely dried. And then we will go ahead and we will seal it. The surface is now dried and I've wiped it off nice and clean. And so now what I'm gonna do is use my satin clear coat and go over it with a clean sponge brush and seal in our transfer. Now that we've sealed the transfer, I want to show you how to use IOD's decor stamps. So this is how the decor stamps come. And I did the top right here to show you. I used their ink. So you can use paint if you like, but you want to make sure you don't put a ton of paint on your stamp. I have a stamp pad, which I've already added the white ink to, and then this is the refill right here, okay? So you don't need a lot. When you first get this, you're going to put your ink on it and let it soak in, and then we're gonna use this. We're gonna set this aside. We're gonna use the ink pad to add a stamp. So the stamps come, you're gonna pull them off, and they're two-sided. So I've already pulled this one off because we're gonna do this at the bottom, but if you can see, they're sticky. Okay, there is a stamping block and a brayer that you can get, but you can also do it by hand. So I'm gonna set this up here. I'm gonna show you. This is 2-piece, and when they first come, so I've already pulled these off. When they first come, this is like on there, okay? So when you pull it, you're not gonna break it, but just know that it is really, really on there when you first pull it off. So it's all a section. These are all little pieces, so you can kind of choose what you want to do. I chose this part, and this stamp is Bohemia. And so I chose this part right here, and afterwards I just clean it with water, okay? So I'm gonna show you how we're gonna stamp. I'm gonna put this stamp along the bottom as well, and then I'm gonna show you how you seal the stamp. You're gonna wait 24 hours after you have used the ink to allow it to completely dry before you seal it. So this I did yesterday, so I'll show you how to seal it, but right now we're gonna go over how to actually stamp. Okay, so here's my stamp. It's clean and dry, and here is my stamp pad. So I'm just gonna do this on my hand, but if you have a surface, you can do it. And I'm just gonna take the stamp pad, and I'm just going to lightly go over it. And I'm gonna hit all those areas. So you can see how it's hitting those raised areas and it's putting that ink on there. Now, if you wanted a super clean stamp on your pieces, you would probably want to try to use a brayer. You can also wipe it across if you want and then stamp it to get it all in there. You'd probably want to use a brayer, but I'm going for a boho look. I'm going to turn it this way. So I'm okay with it not being completely perfect. So I'm just stamping it on there. You can wipe it across and then stamp it. Either way, you could stamp it or you could wipe it across. Okay, so do you see how there is ink on this entire one? And they have different colors. This is the white ink. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it this way. We're gonna get a little bit closer. Close my ink pad. Make sure you close your ink pad, otherwise you might set yourself on there. Okay, so I'm going to carefully place it here, and what's really nice about this is once I place it and add some pressure, it kind of stays in place, which helps me when I'm using my hand. So I'm just gonna lightly go over each area and stamp by hand. And this is where if you have a brayer, you would use your brayer, roll over it if you want. I do not have a brayer. You can use your hand to kind of, in my last video I showed you how to do it with your hand. Okay, now you're going to carefully pull on one corner and then pull it up. And there it is, you have a stamp. There is probably enough ink on here for me to do my next one. So because again, I don't want it to be super perfect, I'm gonna put it right up against that other one and I'm just gonna push it down. Okay, let's see how that turned out. It's a little bit lighter, but it looks lighter over the yellow than it does up here on this teal. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more ink to the next one. So I'm gonna add some ink onto here. I don't need to add as much as I did before because there is still some residual ink from the initial application. So I'm just gonna quickly go over it. Again, remember, I don't want it super perfect. Close up that ink. And we're going to set it down right there. So this ink does not dry as fast as a paint would dry. Okay, so be mindful of that. This ink, you really do want to give it 24 hours to dry because it's almost like a sticky versus the paint, hence why it sticks to the surface. Okay, now we're gonna pull that off and boom, there you go. So there is another stamp right there. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this aside because I'm gonna show you how I'm going to seal the top. Okay, so this top is fully dried and it's ready for me to seal it with my Dixie Belle Satin Clear Coat. So I'm going to take a sponge brush, I'm gonna dip it in there, and I'm just going to run it along lightly. You shouldn't worry about smudging it, it's totally dry, but I use light pressure anyways. Yeah, just in case, you never know. And now, easy peasy, it's locked in, it's sealed. And so once these other ones dry, I'm gonna lock these ones in about 24 hours and seal the rest of the piece, and then it will be done. All right, friends, so here's the piece. It is done. I have sealed everything. We have done the transfer. We've done the stamps, the blending. I hope you guys like it. You know me, I love everything colorful. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell and you'll get all the latest videos from me. Remember, everything I use is in the description below, so you will be able to see exactly where to purchase anything that you need. Thank you guys so much for watching and happy creating.
I thought that we had something special. I thought I handled this so well. I know we had the right intentions, but somehow it came to an end. I was looking for a